everybody, and welcome to Let's Talk About Colouring. I am Tatiana, Independent Stampin Up Demonstrator in Australia, and I have been doing a series of live videos discussing colouring. Stamping Up is stamping, and there are so many wonderful options on how to colour your stamped images, and I wanted to show you all what those options are and how they compare, because every option gives you a very different look. Now, this is the second time I've started this video because the first time it was blurry, and I'm explaining this so that those who weren't watching the first time and weren't watching live understand my next comment. I am so thrilled to hear from Margaret and Tanya that it isn't blurry, so yay! And hello Jessica, welcome to the video. This is lesson 5. We are exploring different colouring methods, but what we're doing is using the exact same colours every week or every lesson to compare each of the different colouring methods. And that's what I'm so excited about, because you can get to see the different methods and the different looks, and that way you can choose what look you're going for in your next project. Everything I am showing you today, every product I do sell in my online store, and I'll put that link up after the video finishes, but for those who are interested, it's bit.ly/shop with Tatiana with the capital S, W and T. Let's get colouring. Today we are using one of my favorites, which is the stamping blends. Let's head to the craft desk. Brilliant. Here is the desk. I have pre-stamped and pre-die cut our images, and these are the stamping blends. These are, excuse me, the same colors I've been using all lesson or all series. They are Daffodil Delight, Granny Apple Green and Bermuda Bay. Stamping blends, you can buy the markers individually or in pairs, and the pairs are lights and dark. So there's the dark and light, dark and light, dark and light. Had to refresh. That's right, Angie. I'm seeing comments on both spots now today. So these are an alcohol-based marker, and what is fantastic about alcohol-based markers is that you can, as the name suggests, blend color in and get a really seamless blend. You can't do that with normal regular markers. And what I really love about these is that when you do color, you don't get streaks of color. Next lesson we'll be using the Stampin' Write markers, and you'll see the difference, and I'll put the side-to-side comparison. You get streaks, whereas with alcohol-based markers you don't get streaking, and it makes you look like an amazing artist without much effort, which I'm going to show you how easy that is today. Put those to the side. I have stamped our regular 2 leaves and rose on shimmery white paper. You can also use Whisper White thick paper, and I'm not doing the comparison because I feel that the color vibrancy and the color and the texture is the same. There is no point in comparing it. As I have all series long, I have been stamping in the corresponding color. So this has been stamped in Daffodil Delight, Granny Apple Green, Bermuda Bay. And if you would prefer a black outline, you need to stamp using Memento ink. Last week, when we did the aqua painting with the watercolor pencils, I stamped in this is Tuxedo Black. I stamped in StazOn ink. StazOn ink is an alcohol-based ink, so it won't spread with water. Because we're using alcohol-based markers, we need an ink that doesn't bleed with alcohol, and that is water. Once you get your head around, that's pretty much. And our regular inks are water-based, so that's really handy that you can use those. So let's get colouring. We'll start with the biggest. There is no right or wrong answer on how to use your stamping blends. I'll just go through their feature. It's a dual-ended marker, and on one end we have a bullet nib. It's probably better showing it off my hand. And on the other end we have a brush tip. I tend to gravitate to the bullet end, I find that I have more control over it, but you can certainly use the brush. I use the brush end with really large areas. For me, this is not large enough, but it doesn't matter, and I'll try both just to show you. As I've already mentioned, these come in sets, or you can buy them individually, but the main thing is that you get a light and a dark of each color, and this is what you're going to use to make the gradient. The way I like to start, and I'll do different methods just to show the different options, and what I'm going to do is also lower the camera so that you can really see what I'm doing. I like to start with the dark, so there we go, daffodil dark, and I tend to hold them both in my hand. I don't know, it's a comfort thing, don't have to. And I'm going to add the dark into the shadow areas. I bring it out further than I would like it to be, because in the blending process we will lose that middle ground, and I want to be able to have some. So I do a few petals at a time, just work in sections at a time. The alcohol takes time to evaporate, and that's what allows you to blend, but if you pre-mark areas, it just won't blend as easily. Now, I've just added the light on the area, didn't color, and now I'm blending it in circular motion along the dark area, and as you can see, the dark area has reduced significantly, and that is why I start off with it quite large. So I'm just working to circular, and as you can see, it doesn't matter what direction I'm going. I can zigzag and change directions, it just blends. With these, it takes a little bit of time for the alcohol to evaporate. So as the alcohol evaporates, the better it looks. So you may look at your image going, oh, I don't really like that. Give it a few minutes and let it rest in some respects, a bit like dough when you're cooking, and then see the results. Now, I do think it's important, as you can see, just to go over that area where it's joining. I'll show you. So I start with the tip in the light area and then bring it down into that middle ground and blending the color. And as you can see, the areas that I did earlier already have changed looks. This is less saturated. Not color saturation, but alcohol saturation. It evaporates fairly quickly. Hope everyone is well. We have had some rain this evening or this afternoon. Not as much as I had hoped, but certainly very welcomed. I'm on the mid-north coast of New South Wales, for those who are watching. Please say hi. I do enjoy a little bit of a chit-chatter while I share my colouring tips. If you're watching for the first time, welcome. I love that you have joined me. My name is Tatiana, and I'm an independent Stampin' Up demonstrator in the mid-north coast of New South Wales, and I love to share what I do. And I am a card maker, paper crafter. I sell and teach classes. I sell all the products. I teach classes on how to use, and just the main thing about the classes, it's an escape from everyday life to do something creative, and creativity just brings joy to so many people. It brings joy to yourself, it brings joy to others who you create with, and then when you make a card, like is the primary thing I teach, card making, you brighten someone else's day when you send or give that card. Kiwi, I had fire 3 kilometers away from us. That's why I was a little bit inconsistent in the time of this series, simply because, yes, there is fires near us. So that's our first flower all done. With this one, just to recap, I would lay the darker color down first and then blend in the light. I'm going to show you something a little bit different. And what I might do is use the brush tip. We'll again work in sections. Hello, Jackie. Nice. Thank you so much for joining me. It's the first time I've seen you a Join Me Live, so welcome. I'm thrilled that you are here. You see, you're determined to use your blends. Well, I hope I'll give you some good pointers. Now this time, I've laid the light colour down first. We'll do two. And see, and I'll use the brush end. And now I'm going to add in the dark. So it's just a bit of an opposite. So when I first started, I preferred this method. So to add the light first, then go over in the dark, and then go in and blend in together. I found that more comfortable. So if you're new to blends and alcohol-based markers, you might want to try this method first. Hello Renee, hot and smoky. Oh dear, Queensland is also got those horrible fires. I hope you're keeping safe. So I'm just going to do the same method with all these petals, essentially laying down some of the light color first. And again, I'm still working in a few areas, just a few petals at a time, because you don't want the alcohol to evaporate before you start blending. That's what really blends in. And now when you do this method, you get just as nice blend, but you should be aware that you may get a darker light area, simply because you're going over the light area a few times. Randomly popped up in your feed. Fantastic, Jackie. Well, it must meant to be. Is that the right? It's meant to be. Let's just go with that. So just blending. Let's do all these. You love to colour with our blends. Yes, these are fantastic blends. Now, you don't have to feel restricted. I'm only using these three colours because I want to compare and contrast. I feel like I'm back in high school when I say that. To the different colouring methods, the different options across all of Stampin' Up's products. But later in this series, we'll be looking at mixed media, where we use a combination of our mixed media. And one of my favourites is, excuse me, I'm just going to have a glass of, just a drink of water in a second. Whew. It's so humid here. Mixed media, I love to add the blends and then add some detail in with our Stampin' Right markers. So explore, experiment, just work out what works for you. Honestly, ladies and any gents watching, my sole purpose of crafting, being a demonstrator, is to inspire creativity and the joy that it brings. I am not going to judge in which method you do this. If you like the way it looks, if it brings you joy, if it's brought someone else joy, I think we have done it. That is the key thing here. Now, something I'm not doing, but it is recommended, is that you protect your work surface when using these, because they do saturate the paper quite well, and as you can see, bleed through. But I have found that the shimmery white paper that I'm using from Stampin' Up doesn't bleed onto my table. But if you're using other branded paper, please be wary and careful, because I don't want you to colour on your table by accident and be disappointed. So I'm going to start with the stamped image, and with that one we were using the light first. So again, I'm going to go through using the brush tip just to show you how you can. And then with this one, I think we'll just do darker down here and let the leaf gradient to the lighter and blend those two in. Light to both leaves, it's only small areas. This is now the Granny Apple Green, and I do love the look that you get when you're using the same colour ink to stamp on the stamped image as the blends you're about to use, because it's a very different look. And had this one, and again I'm still taking the dark area further than I intend it to be, simply because when you're blending it will reduce that area. And so now I do find that that's more of a darker blend compared to the other method which I use, which is adding the dark area first and then blending in and colouring the rest with light. Super easy. And don't they look amazing? Honestly, it looks like artist work. This is what I love about the blends. It just creates an instant artist. As long as you've got that blend there and your dark is in areas of shadow or areas that are somewhat logical to the brain to be darker, then you are an instant artist, and this is what I truly love about the blends. Ta-da! One more to go. So this is how I hold them. I hold both the dark and the light into my hand, and I pick up the one that I want. It is very important to really close these markers well. Never leave them open for too long. In fact, when you're finished, make sure you close and hear that click. They do quickly dry out if you leave them open. Ooh, speaking of drying out, I have clearly left this one open. Let's try the brush tip. Oh my goodness. Well, I've had someone using my blends and didn't close them, and they have dried out. We will have to skip the light, the Bermuda Bay. Oh my goodness. I haven't been using it enough. And clearly I didn't click it. See, this is an example of dried out marker. Bummer. Oh well. You still get the picture. Very neat and clear picture, and I will share on my blog later how that looks once it is properly coloured in. Just lift up the camera again. Oh, come on. There we go. This is the card base we've been using. This is a colour by Stampin' Up called Sahara Sand, and what I've done is I've stamped off in Sahara Sand on the front of this page, and now we're going to assemble our cards. So, grab my glue. Can't believe that. My pen dried up because I didn't close it properly. It's okay. They do sell them individually, so I'm able to replace just that one that I have lost. Normally I would put the Bermuda Bay leaf up here, but I can slip that in later when I've coloured it properly. And for our flower, we've been using Stamping Dimensionals. Oh, those are the little ones. Here they are. These are foam backed, double-sided foam sticky spots, little hexagons, and they are fantastic for lifting things up. Hello Priscilla, you're just kind of catching me on the tail end, but I hope you're well. And there we go, one, and two. Let's plop that down. Doesn't look too bad without the leaf. And that is the introductory. It's an introduction to colouring with stamping blends. So yes, let's bring in the cards from previous weeks. So last week we used coloured pencils, and this one we used the shimmer, the Wink of Stella to blend it in, and that one we used the blends pen. This one is the blends pen. And then we also stamped it on, what is this, still watercolor pencil? Yes, with the aqua painter. And there's the aqua painter in the, I still haven't, I've been naughty. So you can see the difference already. This is pencils and that is stamping blends, very different looks. Pencils, put that away. That was pencils, watercolor pencils activated, you could say. This is the watercolor pencils just used as regular pencils. Very different looks. How different is that? So if you prefer a more vibrant, you might like the blends. If you like the outline, you like the strokes and you want to play on that, you definitely want to use the color pencils. Ooh. Got envelopes all ready to go with these cards, just trying to. Then the previous lesson to that, we used ink and different methods of ink. This one is with the aqua painter. So that was, I think, lesson 2 from memory. Oh, awesome, Margaret. I'm so glad that you found some tips tonight and that you're going to try them out. Oh, you're welcome, Kay. And then this was our first lesson. This is the stamped. So this particular stamp set, which I've got right here, is called To a Wild Rose. It's a beautiful stamp set. And the reason why I've chosen is because you can stamp the color into your outline for both the leaves and the flower, or you can color. And our first lesson was stamping the color in. And been building up from there. Thank you so much for joining me. I really hope that I have inspired you to try some coloring. I hope that I've inspired you to make a card, excuse me, and send a card to someone to brighten their day. And I hope that I've enlightened you on some coloring methods. Please join me next Monday night for our next lesson, which I've already said is stamping right markers. So they're regular markers and you'll be able to see the difference and why I love the blends about this blending and instant artistry. You'll understand it more when you see next week. And I'm just looking at the differences, despite the fact that this is a black outline and that's that, but you can see that the yellow is more intense there, and that's because I've laid it on top. So this is the one where I colored it all in the light color first and then put the dark on top. So that's when you want the dark to be darker, do that method. When you want it a more subtle change, do this method. Okay, thank you so much. If you have any questions, I'm happy to send out catalogs or answer any questions. Please send me a message or comment here on the video. Thank you so much for watching and bye for now.